So, apparently I have a problem. A problem that is pernicious and invasive. And a problem that I'm probably always going to have as long as I live, so long as my parents were white and bestowed the gift of the mighty penis upon me. But, interestingly, my problem is that I don't have as many problems as other people. Today, we're going to talk about privilege. Since social justice topics started to be taught in Canadian schools, I've had many a teenager and adults with the mindsets of teenagers accuse me of having white male privilege. Well, I'm white, so guilty as charged, and I accept it. I do. I do indeed have white privilege. There's no point in denying it, and I'm male, so yeah, I do have an inborn male privilege, and I'm not held to the same standards as your average woman. But here's the thing. I really don't care. I mean, sure, I'll own the fact that I have straight white male privilege, but the reason that I don't care about it is the same reason that I simply don't care that your average Asian male earns more money in a year than I do, and got far better grades in school, on average, than I did. But do you know what I say to them? Fucking right on. Good for you. I don't care in the same vein that rich kids born into rich families will never know the struggles that I had in life, nor the struggles of those less fortunate than I. Even while they're on a year-long trip around the world hooking up with their umpteenth tourist girl in their 9th consecutive Budapest bath rave, good for them. I know if I had that sort of privilege, I'd be taking advantage of that too, and so would you, so don't even think to deny that. The reason that I simply don't care is because I can't change how I was born. If I want to go to a Budapest bath rave, it's something that I have to work toward. Where is it written that those who have privilege have to step aside and reject said privileges because there are people less fortunate than them? Government policy in the West has done what they can to try to level the playing field through affirmative action policies, scholarships, grants, for those perceived to come from classes that are traditionally underprivileged. Great. Good for you. Other people with the same genitals, sexual orientation, and skin color as me are far less privileged than I. And there are others that are far more privileged than I. Hell, there are even a large number of people who come from traditionally underprivileged backgrounds that are far, far more privileged than I, and many others who have less. But you know what? I'm not concerned with them. Whether they have more privilege or less. The reason being is that very few privileges are static. And guess what? That's not a sign of white privilege. That's a sign that I take not just responsibility for myself, but that I take the lead in my own story. It's assumed that my being white means that I can walk into, say, a department store without being suspected of being a thief or a robber. And that might be true in some cases, but even so, that's going to be largely dependent on how I decide to dress. If I walk into a store dressed like a thug, speaking in street slang, I'm going to be watched and perhaps even followed. If I walk into that same store wearing a $2,000 suit, I'm going to have salespeople falling over themselves trying to help me. And that's a fact whether I happen to be white, black, male, female, straight, or gay. Again, privilege is not static. It's dynamic. It's dependent on so many different factors that it's ridiculous to assume someone has more or less privilege than you based on something as superficial as race or gender or sexual orientation. And sure, the argument can be made that certain demographics are at a higher risk of certain things than others. And nobody's denying that. But listen here. I am a single dad. My main concern in life is the well-being of my daughter. Ensuring she's clothed, fed, and prepared for whatever life has to throw at her is of far, far greater importance to me than teaching her to shut up and listen when a black person insists that she's got privilege. And sure she does. But again, I don't care. Because regardless of how much privilege she or I might have, we still have struggles. We're still treated unfairly due to a variety of reasons. And the only thing that you can do to combat that is to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. No matter what the obstacles are, real or imagined, that might fall in your way. And fight through it until you get to where you want to be. But the one rule I have is really simple. Take advantage of opportunity, but don't you dare tear others down in your pursuit of it. I have friends that can be described as moderately wealthy. The richest man I know is actually an ethnic Egyptian man with an incredibly successful publishing business. When I look at him, I'm not envious. Actually, I rather admire him for what he's achieved. Does it matter to me that his parents entirely funded his education, gave him the capital to start up his business? No. Because that was the lot that he drew in life. So, when I'm told that I need to feel guilty for the original sin of being born a white male and give my hard-earned money to others that might be less fortunate than I when I can barely make ends meet, I reject that idea out of hand. When I'm told that I need to ignore opportunities that would help me gain a better station in life because someone else has a harder time, I reject that too. When I'm told that I need to accept postmodern redefinitions of words like racism and sexism that purposely give me no protection when I'm discriminated against because I happen to be part of a superficial classification of human being that might contain some rude, racist, or sexist people in power, well, I'm going to reject the living shit out of that. Because the truth is that weighing privileges against each other is a nearly impossible feat. There are far too many variables with such an ambiguous concept like privilege to accurately measure. For every privilege that you can point out that I have, which may or may not be true, I can point out other privileges that other classes have that I do not. So, simply put, I don't care about privilege. And I think people who do are engaging in an age-old problem. Envy. Envy does nothing for anyone, and when you look at the world through envious eyes, it causes the envious to justify abhorrent behaviors in the name of justice. And behavior is something that I do care about, because when you start justifying abhorrent behaviors for yourself and others in the name of social justice, or to support your chosen ideology, there are just as many people who might oppose you who will justify other abhorrent behaviors. And the cycle will simply continue and drag the otherwise uninvolved into the whole mess. So feel free to take advantage of all the privileges that you might have, because I get it. Use your white privilege. Use your Asian privilege. Use your black privilege, your rich privilege, welfare privilege, male and female privilege, all you want. And the only time that I'm going to raise my voice is when you use your privilege to justify sabotaging other people or claim all new unique privileges in order to get a leg up on others. Life isn't fair. And don't fool yourself into thinking that any level of activism will ever make it fair, because all it takes is one look at the atmosphere surrounding the concept of privilege in the world today to see that it's breeding animosity and causing the justification of violence. And stop pretending that just because a person has more privileges than you, that it's your duty to tear them down. If equality is your goal, focus on lifting up those you perceive to be less equal, not tearing down those who might or might not have more privilege. And of course, you'll be able to point out the fact that others have undeserved advantages. But again, and I really want to stress this, who are you to deny them that? We all deserve to have the same rights and opportunities, and we're all entitled to our opinions. But pretending that because some people have privileges that you might not means something profound is nothing more than an excuse. Because if it can be achieved through hard work, no matter how hard, it's not a privilege that's out of your reach, no matter who you are. Because there are scores of examples of people just like you who have risen above their assigned station in life, and they come from all walks of life. Ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, there is only one response to the obsession that some people have about privilege. Suck it up. Because if you're so concerned with my privilege, you're doing life wrong. And it's only going to prevent you from reaching your own goals and your dreams. The entire argument over privilege is a distraction. It's an excuse. It's a limiter. It's a reason to say, well, I can't take care of myself, so I need to blame someone who's better off than I in order to make myself feel better about it. And the only thing that you're ever going to achieve with that mindset is the ability to blame others for the devastation that you allowed yourself to experience. And I wouldn't wish that mindset on anyone, because it practically cements the fact that you'll never actually achieve your dreams and goals without the help of happenstance. You'll never know what it is to achieve something by your own ability. You'll never improve your ability, and certainly it's possible to complain or flagellate yourself and do something that somewhat resembles success, but that's not real. And you will fail, and fail, and fail again. And until you realize that your failings are the key to success, that's all you'll ever do. Fail, blame others for your failures, and then fail again. Accept responsibility for your failings. Learn from them and succeed. And if somebody is actively sabotaging your success, don't blame your failures on them. Succeed in spite of them. Nobody cares enough about you to purposely sabotage your success for very long. So I want to leave you with this quote from Louis C.K. The only time that you should look into your neighbor's bowl is to make sure that they have enough. You don't look to see if they have as much as you. So thanks for listening. I think we need to have a chat.